Ulysses, wake up.
Number 10. The Robot Who Ate Everything. There is a detail about Ulysses 31's most beloved supporting character that somehow got lost in 40 years of nostalgia. Nono, the small red robot companion, had exactly one defining trait that had nothing to do with space, mythology, or the Olympian gods. The little guy was ravenously, endlessly, almost philosophically hungry. While Ulysses navigated the cosmos trying to rescue his frozen crew, Nono was scanning his surroundings for his next meal, even when the next meal was presumably a star system. The stakes of this show could not have been higher. A man exiled by gods, surrounded by people he put into suspended animation, navigating a hostile universe with no clear map to the kingdom of Hades. And trotting alongside him is this tubby little robot muttering about snacks. That contrast is what made the whole dark journey survivable. Pure comic oxygen in an otherwise suffocating story. If hidden TV history and the shows that genuinely shaped your brain are your thing, subscribing means you get the next deep dive the day it drops, not 6 months later when the algorithm decides you deserve it. Number 9. The Great Zodiac. Something was above the gods. Here is a piece of series lore that most casual viewers completely missed, and it deserves its moment in the spotlight. Ulysses 31 did not stop its cosmic hierarchy at Zeus and the Olympian gods. The show introduced a deeper, more mysterious power structure, something called the Great Zodiac, hinted at as a force that potentially controlled or influenced the gods themselves. A shadow above the shadows, if you want to put it that way. Read that slowly. The beings who exiled Ulysses froze his entire crew and sentenced him to wander the universe indefinitely. Those beings had a boss, or something like a boss. The show never spelled it out cleanly, which was entirely intentional, and far smarter than spelling it out. Ambiguity was doing real work here. This is the kind of world building that separates a good cartoon from a genuinely ambitious one. Most kids' shows in 1981 kept their mythology shallow and their power structures simple. Ulysses 31 was quietly constructing a layered cosmology where power was terrifyingly relative. You're afraid of Zeus? Cute. Something out there makes Zeus nervous. That implication alone changes the texture of every scene where the gods feel all-powerful.
That should be here.
Yes, but faster, Heritos. A manned spacecraft is coming into our area.
Number 8. The curse was worse than you remembered. When the Olympian gods struck down Ulysses for destroying the Cyclops, they didn't just send him to the wrong corner of the universe. They froze his entire crew in suspended animation, and then erased their memories entirely. Complete. Gone. Ulysses wasn't just racing against time. He was the only person on that ship who even knew what they were racing toward. Think about the emotional architecture of that for a moment. Every frozen body on the Odyssey represented both a reminder of what Ulysses had to fix and a quiet accusation of what his own actions had caused. He did this. His defiance against the gods put every single one of them in that state. There was no separating the mission from the guilt. The memory erasure detail is the one that younger viewers absorbed more deeply than they probably realized. It wasn't just about waking people up. It was about restoring who they were. Waking someone without their memories isn't really waking them at all. You've recovered a body, not a person. For a Saturday morning cartoon aimed at children, that is an extraordinarily dark premise. The show understood exactly what it was doing with it, and it never blinked.
Restore my sight.
We will do that.
Number 7. The gods weren't misunderstood. They were just villains. A lot of modern mythology retellings spend considerable energy humanizing the Olympians, showing their contradictions, their capacity for mercy, the moments where they were almost sympathetic. Ulysses 31 did not have time for any of that. Zeus and Poseidon were reimagined as full, unambiguous cosmic antagonists. Vengeful, immense, willing to destroy a man and his crew simply because he dared to fight back. No nuance, no redemption arc in sight. This was a deliberate creative choice, and it landed with tremendous force. For a generation raised on cartoon villains who monologued their plans and inexplicably missed every shot, the gods of Ulysses 31 were something genuinely different. They succeeded. Their punishments stuck. Ulysses spent the entire series suffering its consequences, not cleverly reversing it in 22 minutes. There is something mythologically pure about that structure. The original Odyssey, written roughly 3,000 years ago, had the same brutal framework. A man punished by gods who don't particularly care about fairness and never pretend otherwise. The show didn't soften that. It put it in space, aimed it directly at children, and trusted them to handle it. A bold choice, the correct one.
Oh, can't we go too?
Number 6. This was never a happy Saturday morning show. Ulysses 31 wore the clothes of a children's animated adventure. Bright visuals, a robot sidekick, a heroic protagonist with excellent hair. But underneath that presentation was a tone that most contemporary kids' programming actively avoided. Genuine darkness, real consequence, and emotional weight that didn't resolve itself by the closing credits. It looked like the other shows. It wasn't. The show's creators made a conscious decision to treat their young audience as capable of handling difficult themes: isolation, guilt, the indifference of overwhelming power. These weren't subtext. They were plot. Ulysses wasn't a hero collecting power-ups and outsmarting henchmen. He was a man slowly navigating a cosmos stacked against him, and the show never pretended otherwise. No false reassurance. No easy wins. This is why so many men in their 40s and 50s remember it with such unusual intensity. It lodged itself somewhere deeper than entertainment, in the part of a kid's developing brain that was beginning to understand that the universe does not, in fact, organize itself around your best interests. Ulysses 31 knew that. It told you kindly. It told you through synthesizers.
There is a way. We might make it in time. We'll try to head them.
Number 5. Star Wars met Homer on purpose. The foundation of Ulysses 31 was not an accident. It was a direct, deliberate creative strategy. The show's creators set out to fuse the explosive popularity of the space opera genre, riding the enormous cultural wave of Star Wars, with the ancient narrative architecture of Homer's Odyssey. That's the entire pitch. That is the whole show. And the fact that it worked as well as it did is not a given. What makes this worth examining is how cleanly the fusion actually held together. Space operas provided scale, visual spectacle, and the thrill of the unknown cosmos. Greek mythology provided character depth, moral weight, and story structure that had survived 3 millennia of active use. Combining them wasn't lazy shorthand. It was genuinely inspired creative thinking. Released in 1981, the show arrived at exactly the right cultural moment. Kids who had sat in theaters watching the Millennium Falcon jump to hyperspace were ready for something that added emotional and mythological layers to that canvas. Ulysses 31 gave them a hero who was in space and in trouble, and who had put himself there through an act of love, not carelessness. That distinction mattered more than the show ever said out loud.
You 3 stay here. I'll make an outside inspection.
Number 4. An anime legend drew every single face you remember. The striking visual identity of Ulysses 31, the angular heroism of the lead character, the elegance of the designs across the entire cast, came from one specific creative hand: renowned Japanese animator Shingo Araki. He didn't just contribute to the show's look, he defined it, leaving an aesthetic fingerprint that was unmistakable to anyone paying close attention. His later work tells you everything about the caliber of talent applied to this production. Araki went on to create the iconic visual identity for Saint Seiya, known in the West as Knights of the Zodiac, and contributed pivotal work to Lady Oscar, 2 properties with enormously passionate international fan bases that endure to this day. The design sensibility that made those characters legendary was the exact same sensibility drawing Ulysses' jawline in 1981. For a Franco-Japanese co-production aimed at children, this was not a casual hire. Every frame of this show was touched by someone who understood exactly what made a character visually memorable. The next time you picture Ulysses in your mind, that confident silhouette, that unmistakable posture, you are picturing Shingo Araki's work. Number 3. That spaceship was also a fighter jet. Ulysses' spacecraft, the Odyssey, is one of the most immediately recognizable vehicles in animated science fiction history. And the giant eye-like design on its hull is the primary reason. It looked alive. It looked like it was watching the universe back. But the Odyssey's visual design was only half of what made it remarkable as a piece of fictional engineering. The ship possessed the ability to transform and separate, deploying a smaller, significantly more agile fighter craft for direct combat situations. This wasn't just a production shortcut to generate exciting action sequences. It added genuine tactical depth to the storytelling. Ulysses didn't have one vehicle. He had a mothership and a fist. 2 very different tools for 2 very different problems. In the context of early 80s entertainment, this concept carried enormous playground weight. Transforming vehicles were peak currency for kids of that era, The combination of iconic large-scale design and a hidden combat mode made the Odyssey the kind of fictional machine that ended up drawn in the margins of schoolbooks for years, sometimes decades, after the show stopped airing.
Impossible. The ship is directly in front of the one where Yumi and Telemachus are.
Number 2. Yumi was the emotional core of the entire show. Yumi, the blue-skinned Zotrian girl who accompanied Ulysses on his journey, was never just a supporting character. She was the show's emotional anchor in ways that deserve direct acknowledgement. Her telepathic abilities made her practically useful in a cosmic crisis, but her real motivation was something far more personal and far more compelling than a useful set of powers. Her brother, Shirka, was among the frozen crew aboard the Odyssey. Every step of the journey alongside Ulysses was simultaneously a step toward the only family she had left. She wasn't helping out of abstract loyalty or a sense of adventure. She was trying to wake her brother up. That's not a subplot. That is the entire emotional spine of her character, and it made her irreplaceable to the story in a way that no amount of telepathy could have done on its own. For viewers who grew up watching her without necessarily articulating why she mattered, the answer was always this. Yumi had skin in the game in the most literal sense. Her stakes were personal. Her grief was specific. In a show full of cosmic abstraction and divine punishment, she was the most grounded thing on the Odyssey. The most human thing, arguably, regardless of the blue skin.
She's breathing.
Number 1. The English version quietly cut a scene you never knew was missing. Here is the fact that sits at the top of this list precisely because of how quietly, completely, and effectively it was hidden from English-speaking audiences for years. The opening sequence of Ulysses 31 was not identical across every country that aired it. French viewers saw a shot that English viewers simply never got. A prominent rear shot of a shirtless Ulysses during the opening visuals. One version had it, one version didn't, and the one that didn't was yours. The English edit handled this with surgical precision. Rather than the shirtless shot familiar to French audiences, the English cut substituted a close-up of the front of the Odyssey itself. Seamless enough that viewers watching the English broadcast had absolutely no reason to suspect anything had been altered. You didn't know it was different because you had no frame of reference for what was missing. That's how effective the substitution was. This is the specific brand of quiet TV history that tends to evaporate completely. A localization decision made somewhere in a production office, executed cleanly enough to be invisible, and forgotten for decades. Until someone with the French version put both cuts side by side. The show was the same, the opening was not. You watched a slightly different version of Ulysses 31 than French kids did, and nobody put a notice on the screen.
I would never leave you here alone. This is my home.
Bonus fact, he refused a god and won. The emotional climax of Ulysses 31 arrived in the form of an ultimatum almost unbearable in its cruelty. The gods demanded that Ulysses sacrifice his own son Telemachus as the price of ending the curse. Everything he had endured, every episode of loss and isolation, and desperate navigation through hostile mythology, all of it funneled down to a single demand. Give us your son. That's the price. Pay it or stay lost. He refused. Completely. His defiance in that moment wasn't just a heroic beat, it was the proof of concept for the entire series. The gods had spent the whole show testing whether Ulysses could be broken. Exile didn't break him. Guilt didn't break him. The slow accumulation of impossible distances didn't break him. His refusal was the definitive answer to a question the show had been asking since episode 1. And it worked. He found the kingdom of Hades. He revived his frozen crew. He recovered the stolen memories. He went home. There's a reason this ending stayed with people. It wasn't about outsmarting the gods or finding a loophole in the cosmic rules. It was about a man holding the one line he absolutely would not cross, and that intractable human stubbornness being precisely what cracked the curse open. The gods had all the power. Ulysses had one thing they couldn't account for. He meant it. So there it is, Ulysses 31. A show that fused Star Wars energy with 3,000-year-old mythology, hired an anime legend to design its characters, built its emotional core around a telepathic girl trying to wake her brother up, and somehow convinced early 80s television that children were ready for cosmic tragedy on a Saturday morning. They were. You were. From Nono hunting his next meal, to Ulysses staring down a god over his son's life, this show operated at a frequency that most entertainment never finds. It trusted its audience. It respected its source material. It delivered a universe that felt genuinely enormous and genuinely dangerous. And it did all of it in 26 episodes with a synthesizer budget and an era-defining eye on the hull of a spaceship. Which fact hit hardest? Did you already know about Shingo Araki? Were you completely unaware that your opening sequence was different from what French kids were watching? Drop it in the comments. Nono will be there reading them between meals.